Camp counselors of Reddit, what's the strangest thing you've seen kids do? Counselor of 5 years here. I had a super duper stealth pooper. Every morning we awoke to find a freshly dumped turd in the center of our cabin. No one would admit to it. All the kids seemed pretty normal that week, and it was otherwise a great cabin. My co-counselor and I tried taking shifts staying up to figure out who it was. The phantom pooper remains a mystery to this day. I was on night patrol at my camp. The counselor slept in different cabins and the kids slept alone. So we had one counselor patrolling the cabins. I was opening the doors to each to make sure they had all gone to sleep. Then in one cabin all the kids were sitting in a circle and a few were completely naked. One of the kids was a bit more physically mature than the others. They were all 8 to 10 years old. The more mature kid had some kind of liquid in his hand. He was also one of the naked ones. Each kid seemed to be taking turns poking the liquid that was in his hand. A few even poked it then licked their fingers. I can only assume what that liquid was. I just slowly left. Camp counselor for 2 summers. This one kid would wear sweatpants every day. Without prompt by the other kids he would put his arms through his footholes and then pull the waistband up over his head so he looked like some weird two-legged torso. He would then proceed to run around like that chasing the other kids grabbing their ankles. They were terrified. I used to work at a summer day camp run by our local zoo. It was kind of an educational, arts, and crafts, meet the animal kind of thing. Anyway, during the 2-week block, where I'm stationed with the 7 to 9 year olds, they would rotate you, so you wouldn't get burned out on certain behaviors of certain age groups. I got stuck with a child from hell. He was 8 and a holy terror. He bullied the other campers, talked back, taunted the animals during zoo tours and hit/scratched/threw things at camp counselors. One day, my ward from hell goes missing during craft time. One of the other counselors tells me he demanded to go to the restroom. She walked him across to the toilet, and he proceeded to lock himself in the stall and refused to come out. I'd had just enough crap from this kid, so I stormed into the restroom and pounded on the door and yelled "M*******, you come out of that stall right now, or I'm calling your mother." Kid throws open the door, runs straight into me, bear hugs my waist and starts sobbing hysterically, screaming "Please don't call mommy. Please don't call mommy." During his breakdown, I notice he's wet his pants, probably why he decided to stay put in the stall. I tell him to stay there. I'm gonna get some wipes and some spare underoos/shorts that we keep on hand for accidents. The look on this kid's face was indescribable, like I'd just threatened to kill everyone he ever loved or something. He let out a sob and screeched, "Don't tell mommy I pottied on my clothes. I want dinner. I'm hungry. I don't want the belt instead of dinner." Long story short, pretty sure this kid was receiving some sort of physical abuse at home and was acting out at camp because of it. I felt horrible about confronting him in the bathroom and handled him with kid gloves for the duration of camp. I also told the camp director my concerns about his home life, and she said she would look into it. I hope that kiddo is okay. A girl came in wearing a collar and leash and walked around asking people to be her master. Yeah, she was a weird one. Okay, this isn't fatal or sexual, just kind of weird. I had a camper that would catch lizards around the cabins. He would then proceed to make them bite his earlobes and nose until he had several lizards hanging from his head. Then he would run around and scare the girl campers. It was pretty strange. We had 2 changing cabins at my camp for kids to change into bathing suits and such before going swimming. The boys of the camp had a problem just going in and changing, and instead liked to spend ample amounts of time running around naked and screaming. So, we had to take shifts standing outside of the cabin making sure everyone was changing correctly. One day, I was sitting outside the cabin, making sure they were changing with the girl that I had liked at the time, when one of the kids came out of the cabin and told me he needed to talk to me, but he didn't want the girl to hear. So, he whispered in my ear, "Dylan is showing people his butthole." Now, I have to get up, walk into the changing cabin, where all of the kids are standing naked in a semicircle around a kid, who is bent over a chair spreading his ass cheeks, and showing everyone his butthole. I didn't even know what to say, so I just left. I worked a camp for a bit where we had a bunch of buffer activities that we did when kids got dropped off, while we set things up, and while we waited for the kids to get picked up. The most popular was our vast amount of Legos that we had, and the kids obviously took to making cars, spaceships, planes and the like. There was a choice few parts for the really cool stuff, and as such the kids eventually started fighting. No matter what punishments we tried they would not stop fighting over the Legos, so I took to drastic measures. The kids seemed to argue about who had the strongest looking Lego man. I then brought in a zombie Lego man who had a jetpack and a space helmet and all that. He became the invincible Lego space zombie. I told all the kids that he was the most powerful Lego man possible, and they needed to listen to me and quiet down, or the Lego zombie would get you. As always there is one kid who immediately does the exact opposite of whatever was said, started yelling and running around with his Lego plane. I told him the Lego zombie had come for him and took his plane. Then I made the entire camp gather around in a circle, and they got to watch as the Lego zombie showed them exactly what happened to their precious Legos if they misbehaved. I dropped the Legos from way up and let them smash on the floor. Then the kid who was misbehaving had to pick up his now shattered Lego creation as the pieces went all over the room. This fixed the problem until the kids started ratting each other out, and then eventually they started demanding the public Lego executions. It got to the point where they would start chanting Lego zombie, Lego zombie, Lego zombie as I held the Lego creation up in the air before shattering it. Needless to say we took Legos away. TL. Dr. I was worshipped by small children as a Lego death god. I've had a few memorable moments on night patrol, but this one is my favorite. One of the best parts was listening in on cabins to hear what they talked about when they thought no adults were around. One night, I was walking by a boys' cabin when I overheard one of the older campers describing anal sex to his cabin mates. Everyone in the cabin was dead silent, probably hanging on every word as this 13-year-old kid said. Anal sex is a mixture of 4 things: pain, pleasure, confusion, and intensity. To this date the most accurate description of anal sex I have ever heard. Innocently urinating in our bathroom during pool time. I keep getting a whiff of something most foul. It's probably 90F in the bathhouse, super humid, so this smell just keeps pulsing in my nose. I finish up, do some sleuthing, and come across a wadded up pair of swim shorts. The smell is definitely coming from this piece of clothing. I get a stick, of course, and haul the stinky shorts outside. They are kids XXL. We only have one such kid. We'll call him Dickie Brown. They are covered and crusted in Dickie. So I go to the pool to get my supervisor. He comes back to the scene of the shorts. We poke them with the stick. He gags, then says, "Oh my god, there's a similar smell in my cabin." Near Dickie Brown's bunk. We go into my supervisor's cabin. No foul smell immediately. Then we get to looking around D. Brown's bunk. Sleeping bag definitely smells funky. We pull out his suitcase. More gagging. We open the suitcase. Oh my god. We have to burn this. We have to burn it. D. Brown's luggage consisted of no more than a few pairs of white socks and shitty clothes. Like, shit encrusted clothing. But the suitcase wasn't full. Not even halfway. Turns out lots of things. 1. His mother thought we were going to provide him all of his clothes, so she just sent him to camp with socks and underwear and a couple of shirts. 2. Dickie had been throwing away what little clothing he had whenever he got shit on it. 3. Dickie Brown had no sphincter, or something like that. This information came to us indirectly from the admin office, and his mother didn't send him with his medicine that was supposed to make his bowel movements predictable. If anyone can explain, I'd love to hear how this works. I've been telling this story without knowing for 8 years. She just thought he'd be fine for 2 weeks. No biggie. Dickie Brown was so embarrassed to shit himself all the time. Understandable that instead of telling us, he just thought he could hide it for a couple weeks. We washed his clothes, got him a new suitcase from Lost and Found, and tried. This was my responsibility for finding the shorts in the first place. To get him to wear a diaper until his medicine came. I did this for 4 summers. My classmates would always brag about being counselors. Supposedly the summer camp they'd just go to hook up with the other counselors while the kids were out doing activities. It was like a sex summer camp for counselors from their very graphic descriptions. Did a lot of camp counseling a while back. Often worked with special needs groups. They were usually great to work with, but stories were inevitable. There was one camper who tried to leave his room all night, and we had to help the door shut from the outside, so he wouldn't leave. Eventually he gave up, and went back to bed. Or so we thought. Checking in later, we realized he had disappeared. You see, there was an emergency exit to the cabin, but it was old enough that none of the alarms went off when it was triggered. He had gone out that way. We found him across camp in the kitchen in his underwear. There was also the kid who was in line at lunch one day and yelled "I Spider-Man" and proceeded to jump out the second story window. One of the other counselors caught him by the leg halfway out the window and dragged him back in. TL. Dr. Midnight Underwear Escapades and Window Escapes. One of the kids at the summer camp I worked at was obsessed with pine trees. He used to carry branches and needles around with him. The pieces of pine trees he found would eventually take on their own personas. He would tell me this one looks like a young man wearing a hula skirt, and one day, when I saw him on the playground he was putting the pine needles in his ears, and told me these are my children and their house is on fire. I just slowly nodded, and went to play with some other kids. Summer camp director for 12 years here. I could write a novel on the weird shit kids do, but one particular comes to mind. I had a little girl who basically grew up in the camp. Sweet as ever and incredibly intelligent. Since we do not provide lunch for the kids, it was a day camp, we would encourage the parents to pack a snack for their kids so they could eat something at the end of the day. This specific child used to bring bags of dry cat food as her snack. Good old crunchy Purina. She loved this shit and had absolutely no qualms with telling everyone how tasty it was to the disapproving glares of the other campers. Obviously, this was a concern of mine, so I inquired with her mother about her kid's interesting habit. Her response was a simple yes. She has loved eating it since she was really little. Absolutely no concern whatsoever. You may be thinking, who the fuck allows their kid to do that? Is there something else going on with the family? Abuse perhaps? Nope, not one bit. And believe me, I looked into it. TL. Dr. Little Girl loves crunchy Purina cat chows a snack. I used to work at a Boy Scout camp. It was a fun and safe place for kids from 12 to 15 to earn merit badges. Now in order to give perspective, the camp has an east and a west side. These campers work together to win challenges against the opposing side. It's a healthy competition. The sides compete in 3 major challenges. An air band competition. Play songs without instruments and only use hands to symbolize their instrument. An intense water polo match. The campers choose 14 of their biggest and baddest swimmers/throwers to play against each other. And a capture the flag game. 300 kids running around trying to find the opposing flag. Let's just say this can get very heated. The east side has already won the air band and water polo challenges and are about to play capture the flag. The west side is now ready to do anything that it takes to win. The game begins, and it starts as any game would. 15 minutes into this 2-hour event and things are already getting edgy. At 30 minutes we have a report that a kid has been stabbed. Most all of the staff are helping this kid because we are all trained in first aid. This wound is bad. A 2-inch gash to the leg by a lacerated blade. Let's just say we were all pissed to high heaven. After we cancel the game we get more reports of things happening. Strangling campers for information. Waterboarding. Homemade handcuffs. A total of 5 kids got kicked out of camp forever, and East vs West games were never played again. One of the younger kid at the camp I worked at, around 5 to 6, complained that he had to go to the bathroom otherwise he was gonna go in his pants. So I brought him to the bathroom, and he comes out about 5 minutes later all sheepishly. I asked what was wrong, and it turns out he was in such a rush to go he forgot to take his pants off, sat on the toilet, and just shit right into his pants.